Cyclone Idai, which the United Nations described as one of the worst weather-related catastrophes in the history of Africa, made landfall in Mozambique on March 14 before drifting into Zimbabwe and Malawi. The merciless cyclone killed about 328 people in the eastern districts of Zimbabwe in Chimanimani and Chipinge. Others were reported missing, and some people may never be accounted for. The mudslides that were ignited by the heavy downpour deposited piles of rocks and boulders, a feature that may forever be a poignant reminder of the harsh cyclone, which is a result of the changing climate caused by global warming. More than 11,000 people were displaced. Infrastructure that includes roads, bridges, and schools were destroyed. Crops for the subsistence farmers were destroyed, with the UN World Food Programme WFP estimating that 270,000 people urgently needed humanitarian aid. Government and humanitarian agencies quickly moved in with assistance. It was, however, a challenge for the authorities due to limited resources in the fiscus and the amount of damage that had been caused by the cyclone. July 10, 2019, about 4 months after the disaster, some villagers gathered at Biriri Secondary in Chimanimani to receive more aid from a local organization. Whereas reconstruction work was well underway at that time in some areas, the situation at institutions such as St. Charles Luangwa, a school which lost a number of pupils and a worker, remained the same, with rubble strewn all over, a grim reminder to the remaining small community of the horror of the night that the cyclone struck.
But emotionally and psychologically, as teachers and learners, as it were, we are somehow affected. Because that kind of a traumatic experience which we endured is still pending in our memories, as it were. Saka in that regards, and as if that is not enough, kubva pezvakaitika muna March kusvika petiri nhasi, munotongoona zvakaitezvi. Dai kuti zvinhu zvakakliwa at least zvitori nani. Saka as long as you wake up any day and face such garbage as this and rubble as this one, that definitely would make you go down memory lane and think about this event again.
This goes to demonstrate the lack of preparedness to deal with disasters of this magnitude. Cyclone Idai had come before the government of Zimbabwe had ratified its membership with the African Risk Capacity, a specialized agency for the African Union AU that is helping countries across Africa better plan, prepare and respond to extreme weather events and protect food security for vulnerable populations. In November 2019, the African Risk Capacity held a 2-day workshop in Harare for East and Southern Africa. Some of the objectives of the workshop were to align ARC programs with other disaster risk financing initiatives for improved efficiency in program implementation at country level, consult on ARC's a new work stream and opportunities, and to collect feedback from member states on their implementation, identify innovative approaches for resource mobilization to support premium financing at country or regional level.
As the effects of climate change continue to worsen, Africa is increasingly facing the recently we've seen for example, currently with the droughts, I think the reports from SADC are presenting a dire situation for some of the countries in the region, where we're talking about millions of people being food insecure. But the narrative can be different. It doesn't have to be emergencies. It doesn't have to be a crisis. There is an available option to help countries to initiate a response before the situation turns into a crisis. And this is with the idea that we can save lives and we can save livelihoods and also prevent the loss of development gains that our economies are making. We have provided coverage of approximately $550 million to about 10 countries at the moment, and also paid out a total of $59 million.
I'm happy to advise that we now have a technical working group comprising relevant government institutions, and they've already been capacitated in the use of the Africa Risk View drought forecasting software and in developing the country's contingency or operational plan. The technical working group has also customized the country's data to the Africa Risk View software to assist government to predict drought risks and trigger the necessary insurance payouts. I would like to express our gratitude to ACK for these capacity building initiatives, which have assisted Zimbabwe to take drought risk insurance to cover the vulnerable population, particularly given the high probability of drought and or flood incidences in the region, amongst other natural disasters. Our principals have positively embraced this initiative and look forward to its implementation. I'm also pleased to advise that we recently received interest from the WFP to participate in the ACK replica insurance, which will expand coverage to our vulnerable population. We're very grateful for this support.
The East and Southern Africa region has been embracing emerging and innovative tools of financing responses to the different types and layers of risks associated with these disasters, as well as associated risk analysis, quantification, profiling, and early warning. The conference had a session to recap the state of disasters and disaster risk financing in the region, initiatives that have opened up for countries, identify challenges and opportunities, provide policy direction of where and how the region needs to move forward. Some countries in the region have gone through the development of disaster risk financing strategies and associated emerging risk analysis. The experiences were shared with the participants at the meeting. The participants also isolated the strengths, challenges, and opportunities for the African risk capacity.
We're also talking of, we're saying allocation of resources for government is usually done at the expense of other competing priorities, which makes it difficult for you to have full allocations for disaster financing. And the last one, we also discussed that there is a lack of awareness or sensitization to the policymakers. We feel that the policymakers are not really aware of the importance of issues of climate resilience, so it's very difficult for them to make the decisions of, they are uninformed, so we just feel that there's a need to do more on that one. And another limitation, we say there's lack of disaster financing. You find that maybe the finances have arrived, but for them to actually trickle down to disaster response or preparedness activities, it's a non-starter. It's not easy. Sometimes you find that the funds could be used for something else, and there's no explanation for it. So number 3, we're discussing the critical processes to ensure that premiums for sovereign insurance is considered within the budget. Right there we said there is a need to set up clear roadmap on implementation of the policy to ensure that it's sustainable. And we're also saying that there's a need to be conducting comprehensive risk assessments of disasters. There's uncertainty of the occurrence of disasters. You're not sure when a disaster is going to come up, so usually government will not opt to be in a sure state that a disaster is going to happen. So you find that they are not really prepared for finances of the at-risk pool. And number 2, we're saying bureaucratic processes. There are too many processes that are involved during the process. There is back-to-back discussions with the Office of the Minister, you go back with the Secretary to the Treasury, you go back with the Minister of Agriculture, you go back with the ARC. It's just too much all in all.
We try to look at the areas of partnership and how they should be established, coordinated, as well as strengthened. So in that regard, our first call of priority was awareness building. The team felt that, if we fail to build awareness on the ARC issues and disaster risk management issues, then no one knows what the challenges are. And for them to plan for recourse or redress, they can't do that by virtue of the fact that there is no knowledge on the issues affecting the. So to that extent, there is need for us to do awareness building. So how do we initiate our awareness building? We felt that it should be done through workshops for capacity building. We also need so these workshops. The team felt that they should be across the board. They might be for corporates. Also need for these workshops to be media related, because considering for this kind of workshops that also work towards capacity building for everyone to understand the issues. Partnerships need to be designed in terms of resource mobilization. We felt that if there are no resources to implement these programs, the DRM program, in the resource mobilization issue, we also felt that in terms of establishing and coordinating and strengthening resource mobilization issues, there is need for transparency. Now, we might mobilize $1 billion for DRM, but in turn, if we are not transparent, if we are not accountable, that money won't help in terms of resolving the issues. So there is need for strengthening and coordination of fiscal transparency in terms of managing all the funds that might be raised for DRM. The third issue was early warning units. We felt that in the technological era that we are currently living in, there is need for us as Africans and as African governments to start developing structures and technologies that can facilitate for early warning structures. Where, like we look at the case of Cyclone Idai in the scenario of Zimbabwe. When Zimbabwe was affected by Cyclone Idai, it took a lot of time for the help to get to the people who were affected because there were no early warning units.
Problem that we identified is that disaster management, disaster risk management is a kind of new phenomenon. There has been more of a reactive culture to disaster rather than proactive approach by governments. So there is an opportunity that is existing there because we are sitting here. It's an opportunity already because it shows governments' willingness now to take into consideration and bring into their government systems policy mechanisms that can address this. So I think ARC can take advantage of the political willingness that is there because we are gathering here, we are talking about this matter which we have not talked about before. And then we have also seen that there are divorced policies among sectors of governments. For example, the agriculture sector is more concerned about climate change. We see health is responding to epidemics and so on. So I think the group was of the opinion that there is need for coordination.
Gender mainstreaming in disaster risk management and financing is an important area that is also being attended to under this project.
Gender and disaster risk management, you're all in the area, you're developing your Sendai national plans of action, so you understand why integrating gender is important in disaster risk management. So those are both cross-cutting development issues. I mean, without mainstreaming gender, it's difficult to attain sustainable development goals. And DRM issues also affect the attainment of the sustainable development goals. I mean, if you have one disaster in a country, it sets you years back down the line. So these are issues that need to be mainstreamed in such a way that, I mean, they make sense and they are incorporated in the basic principles and procedures of our governance systems.
The media is increasingly playing a crucial role in disseminating information on disaster risk management and financing. Media representatives from the region were represented to speak out on the role of the media.
Yes, the media should be considered as stakeholders in disaster risk reduction. Why? Because it is an integral part of the risk management process. It can make a real difference in the way people think about and act on disasters, and they do more than just inform and raise awareness.
My colleague has already pointed out, the media should be a stakeholder in disaster management, but more than that, the media should actually be both. Because in the first place, we must be stakeholders because the media exists in an environment, in a community, which can be affected by the disasters we are talking about. And if those disasters strike, then either the media can be harmed or its operations can be impeded. So to that extent, the media must be stakeholders in the disaster management.
I do believe that the media needs to be capacitated from inception at training level to ensure that the issues around climate change, around disaster risk management or reduction is tackled. And therefore, the first point of call is to ensure we build the capacity of journalists when they are at training institutions, not when they are old men and women to learn new skills. And secondly, we need to look at how, what tools, for example, we use, because more often than not, occasionally when you go among some communities, you get the impression that they think disasters such as floods and other things tend to only happen in Europe and other parts of the world, and rarely do they happen in Africa. And so therefore they need to understand that these are problems that are now with us, and we now need to consider the important use of platforms such as radio. Radio is still a powerful tool for communication in Africa. And also the tools that we use as Africans, particularly community theatre. We have also found that as a communication tool that tends to work and to make meaning or sense to some people.
The big news at the end of the Harare meeting was that from 2020, Zimbabwe will have become a full member of the African Risk Capacity after having paid $1 million United States dollars.
As we go back to our countries, let us enhance on the need to strengthen our existing in-country disaster risk management frameworks so that we have a strong base to start from. Going forward, ladies and gentlemen, let us tap into the enormous amount of information. Let's enhance our domestic tools back home on preparedness and swift responses to climate change, droughts, and other weather-related disasters. More crucial, let's impact on the financially excluded and the vulnerable. Our discussions and sharing of country experiences has also affirmed the imperative of effective collaboration of all stakeholders involved in disaster risk financing. Our efforts, ladies and gentlemen, should be complementary, given that all this is towards achievement of the same goal. Let us also, as governments, embrace the African Union initiative of investing in infrastructure to build resilience to climate change, drought, and other weather-related hazards through supporting the ARC and its partners.